with Neil Fon and Chris Lazario. What's up, my
Maybe
brother?
that's what we should call it, the unnamed podcast.
Hey, I like it. The unnamed podcast. It might be.
Is forward slash at unnamed taking you? Just write, try
Hey,
to.
it might be us. You know who actually? There was a guy at Barstool Sports. They have an unnamed podcast. That's what he was going for a little while. So that might be taken, but that may be it. But we did well. You know, the first one was good. First episode was good. We really, you know, I'm glad that we kind of went through a little bit of our backgrounds. We talked about there's some great clips out there that we'll be sharing here soon, just about your journey in real estate, some of the rental scams out there. I talked a little bit about the Dubai opportunities with Disney World and as well as the Wynn Casino. We shout
Disney
out our
World, like Dubai, right? Or is it's going to be near Dubai?
so the Disney World in UAE is going to be in Abu Dhabi, so a little
Okay.
bit in the
So,
capital. They already have a
you
SeaWorld
got to be
there.
clear about that because people are like Disney World. Okay. Not really,
Disneyland,
because
right?
yeah. Well,
So it'll be
Disneyland is in California.
yeah, it's gonna be a Disneyland, I think. So I don't know if it's gonna be a Disney World. I don't know what the real difference is, but
Well, maybe.
uh,
Well, I guess there's only one world, and then there's lots of lands, right?
there you go. Yes, that's exactly it. So yeah, there's yeah, because there's one in Shanghai, there's one in Europe somewhere, I believe, and then this would be the third one. So
And Disney
yeah,
World is literally like its own country. The place is
Disney
huge.
World's incredible. Well, if you go to Disney World's incredible.
No,
You
my
gotta love
brother-in-law
Disney World.
told me. I think I was talking to him was it last night or the night before, and he's got a house 5 minutes from the attractions. He bought this awesome place. I think he got a deal on it because it was costing like 700 grand. I think it's worth $1.5 million now. Yeah, no, really. He's got a huge house, like five, six bedrooms. Got a private suite. Like he's pretty hooked up. He's got a pool. He did well. I'm proud of him.
Appreciation, baby. Location, location, location. Yeah.
Well, he called me
And
to
so
invite
we,
me. I guess he wants to see his niece, which is cool.
there we go. You know,
I know
it's
he's got two little boys that I haven't been able to see much of the last couple of years.
nice. So that's good. You know, again, we were able to give a little bit of our backgrounds, why we're doing this, provide some value, and also, we were able to talk a little bit about our team, the Premier Group and the Real model. I thought that was insightful. Some great clips coming out of that, and these are going to be living on my YouTube channel. So if you want to go check out the full episode, it's there. But yeah, I wanted to kind of go into today. Well, first off, welcome to the show. I'm Anil Irfan. I'm a real broker and Premier Group here in South Florida. Kicking off the podcast today, we're going to talk about. Listen, we're going to talk about the market. I think we're going to include this in each episode, give us an idea of what's going on in the South Florida market. I want to dig into that. Also, I want to talk about technology. You have an incredible technology and computer science background. I want to talk about that intersection between, of course, the biggest technology in the world right now, kind of changing the world, is AI, and how that ties into real estate. And then we kind of talk about a little geopolitical that's going on in regards to global investing as well. So I'm joined today by Chris Lazario, of course, founder of Miami Beach Brokers. He's a senior property.
Lazaro, not
Christopher
Lazario.
Lazaro. He's founder of Miami Beach Brokers, and of course, he's a senior partner with Premier Group. Each week we're going to break down the market. We're going to talk about deals. I want to go into AI tools, like I mentioned, and where these opportunities really lie. So let's start there. The South Florida market. Listen, it's been a roller coaster for the last few years. For me, getting into the market last year, for many years, it's been such a seller's market. Around COVID, things that were happening where we had that mass migration from up north, and, deals and houses were selling, multiple offers above asking price, and to the climate we are in now. So Chris, can you give me just a streamline kind of a data point from where we were from those COVID days, right, a few years back, to where we sit today?
Well, I mean, it's just kind of been upside down, and unfortunately, I think that there's a lot of misinformation out in the market. A lot of people don't realize is that now 2 months in a row, January and February, we're generally up in all three counties year over year in terms of home sales, home prices. Like condos really corrected, right? That's where you saw the really big correction after that Surfside thing. Everybody's worried about HOAs, and I don't want to pay an HOA. But the thing is that I think that people should realize that it's not like some scam where they're taking money from you. I mean, listen, there's some, I'm sure there's associations out there that are still well in the midst of their corruption, but a lot of that's coming to an end. But the fact is that like you've got water included. Water bill is pretty expensive. It's getting more expensive right now because Southeast Florida's in a drought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also have a lot of your insurance costs is wrapped up in that HOA because you only need to pay for your contents insurance really and some liability in your apartment. You do not have the structures, the association's problem, you know, and a lot of people don't realize that, you know.
Yeah, and talk
Um,
about that. So going back to that kind of thing, you're right. I mean, the biggest difference and biggest correction that's happened from an asset class standpoint is definitely the condos. So, that goes back to, correct me if I'm wrong, that goes back to the Surfside collapse. Basically, there was a lot of deferred maintenance that was ignored, right? And
Yeah,
that,
but it was
that,
ignored, and they were idiots because they don't know how to clearly read. Okay, because it literally says in a paragraph on page one, right, of the report from the engineer, is that this problem will get exponentially worse. Okay, clearly he
no,
should have done the language down because people don't realize what exponentially means. You
yeah,
know,
but what
it's
did that do?
short
That
cut.
collapse of that tragic collapse of that building, what
It
did
was
that then
tragic.
kick off?
Yeah, it was absolutely horrible. But you have to understand, I also experienced something like this. I bought my first condo in 2004. Okay,
Okay.
and it was in Palm Air, in Pompano Beach, on the golf course. Everything seemed great. I had a beautiful 3-2, nice size place, gorgeous view. I was right on the 17th hole of the Palms golf course, corner unit. Within 10 months, Hurricane Wilma hit, and next thing you know, I got like $50,000 in assessments. Some
Wow.
crazy numbers. I mean, it was one after the other. So it wasn't just one, it just was this string. And then it was compounded by the stupidity of the president, okay, of the association. We ended up having to
Right.
get two roofs installed because the first one he went with a contractor that wasn't certified by General Electric to install that TPO roof. Okay. So had to pay for that twice. Okay. Anyway, it turned out to about 50 grand all said and done. And one of the reasons is that our HOA had very little in reserves because the old retired fixed income fools, frankly, were deliberately taking out of the reserves, essentially borrowing from them, right, to keep
Right.
the dues artificially low. And so you got to be really careful when you're seeing these good deals. Well, a lot of legislation has now happened, and now instead of just having a few pieces of paper to show a buyer, we've got to go through a lot of stuff. We need that structural integrity reserve study report. If it's 3 stories or higher, it's got all sorts of requirements now. There's also requirements that are based on size, anything over 100 units, et cetera. But also now, I used to write it into people's additional term sections on the purchase and sale contract that we would get 2 years of meeting these, you know. And the reason I would ask for that is because I wanted to see what deferred maintenance was out there that's being tabled in
Yeah.
the association, right?
Yeah.
That's where the devil's in the details there. You also, by the way, when you review these minutes, you get to see who's got their hand in other people's pockets. Little idiots that love to have their novel projects, right? For the association, they love to spend other people's money. You know, I call them Democrats, but what can you do?
But that's what it did, right? It really exposed, with the specific legislation was what? That they needed to do special assessments, or what was the actual legislation that passed?
Well, the Surfside thing that you have to have, they tightened up building codes. You have to have
Okay.
inspections now more
Okay.
frequently,
And it
and
was like a 40-year thing, right? Once the building is
well, you
coming up.
already had the 40-year and 50-year, but they've increased it now. I forget the term, I forget the exact numbers, but you have additional inspections now, and
Okay.
you have to have a reserve study, and you must keep reserves. And by the way, if you do not have a reserve study and do not have sufficient reserves, apparently by the end of this year, there's going to be a real problem, right?
Yeah.
Now, I. I basically took a step back and I really only review these now. And I haven't sold a condo in a while. Okay. It's been a while. And the reason is that they're just not selling. They haven't been. I've got the
Right.
only properties right now that I've got lingering other than this one duplex because they're selling, as you're well aware. I killed it last year with duplexes and fourplexes. But this year, I still have some of the same listings that I had last year, and they're all condos
Yeah.
because nobody wants to buy a condo.
Right.
Okay.
And
Now,
that's what
it's
going
starting to
back to
change.
that. Right. But it was exposing. So if you had a condo association, going back to what you were saying, if you had a condo association that was doing the right things, had reserves, kept their records, didn't defer maintenance that much, then they were fine. But the ones that were not, they were getting exposed. I mean, there was a lot of horror stories. There was a Sunny Owls HOA or condo association president that was like buying himself Rolls Royces, you know. But what happened then was because these new regulations came down, and if the association was not prepared or did not have these things in place, right? What was going on? These assessments were now coming to the owners' pockets, right? And we saw big bills of these assessments being handed to homeowners. And if you look at the foreclosure market right now in Florida, it is littered with condos. Or they're set up like ticking time bombs where they know their assessments are coming, they know they can't pay them, and so they're putting them on the market for the next buyer to basically be holding the bag.
I was just at a condo this morning showing a gentleman from New York. Nice place in Hollywood Beach. Huge association. And the board just had a meeting. And now I was actually kind of surprised. It didn't sound that bad because you got hundreds of units, right? But the fact is that they had 30 people that were delinquent on their payments because they all got hit with a $24,000
Yep.
assessment to because it's all cast iron pipes, right?
Yep.
And redo the elevators. Okay, neither of which have been done, but now basically all the money is in, and there's one more payment left. And on this particular 2 units that the lady was representing, she's saying that the seller is going to take care of that, assessment, which is great, which means that you don't have any right now. But then, the buyer rightfully noticed that you got this drop ceiling that's horrific, and the hallway looks really old. And that's the
Mhm.
problem with most of these buildings is they're ancient, right? They're
Right.
built in the
Right.
60s, the 70s, or even the 80s, even the 90s at this point. It's getting old, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of this outdated look and style. So the hallways need to get redone. Maybe the doors need to get redone, right? Maybe you want to install LED lighting. Do you know that a lot of buildings built in the 50s and 60s and 70s still do not have they're not meeting the code with respect to the fire sprinklers? Okay, I remember
Wow.
we had to do that in Palm Air. That was another assessment that I had to
Yeah.
pay,
Yeah.
right? Because this building, 9 stories tall, 90 units in that particular building that I lived in. No, we didn't have sprinklers, but now that was a code, and they had to come in and put this piping literally on the exterior, right? So it looks like ass, right? Because there's no place because the whole place is built out of concrete. Where are you going
Right.
to put the piping?
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's coming. And people are going to
Right.
have to either get used to the industrial look or they're going to have to soften it off. And a lot of people don't like that in terms of style. But if you want to live on the beach for under $1 million, very likely, especially if you want a nice, sizable place with good views, you're going to have to buy an
Yeah.
older building with a remodeled unit, and you're going to
And
have to put up with this. Now,
yeah. And so,
the guy brought his mother. She was fighting with me this morning, a little bit, because she's like, no, I'm on a board. I know that this is not normal with assessment after assessment. I'm like, no, actually, I'm in 100 buildings a year, okay, showing people property that they're not going to buy. At least that's been the story the last 18 months, right? Uh, but nonetheless, I can tell you from having looked at association after association after association, there's always assessments. I mean, it comes
yeah.
every few years. There's going to be something that needs to be done. Either it's the parking lot, or maybe it's the elevators,
Right.
something, the roof. We can't get
Right.
insurance. All of a sudden, the
Right.
codes change. And now you got to bring the building up to code. You're given 2 or 3 years to do it, let's
Right.
say. Because that's
Right.
about to become a lot more frequent. Even newer buildings, okay? Like you got some that are not financeable due to concrete issues, and they're only 10 years old. Okay.
Right.
Like
Right.
I've had a few where I was supposed to do a refi on a mortgage, okay, at a building not to be named, but it's in the city of Miami, and it was only 10 years old. And what do you know? I can't make my $20,000 commission on because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have put them on the do not finance list because they've
Right.
got concrete problems. Think about
And,
that.
and some people would say, look, is because of this, is there deals out there for condos? Listen, the inventory increased, last year. It became truly a buyer's market. In Florida specifically, yeah, there were a lot of condos out there, and there could be deals there, but it goes back
No, there
from
are.
the condo aspect. It all goes back to the property, but really for us, especially, dealing with our clients, was the due diligence on the association, right? So that's kind of where where the condo market is and stays, right? And so, but let's talk more about how this seller market has now. I mean, buyer's market has evolved. We are truly, I think you would agree, in a buyer's market. Can you
Oh
talk
yeah.
about that? Can you talk about that inventory increase? That's kind of a nationwide thing. It's not just a Florida thing.
Inventory has been decreasing, but it's not because there's more sales. I mean, there's been an uptick in sales year over year, but
Okay.
the inventory has been falling because sellers aren't getting their price, and they're either letting it expire or they're pulling them off the market.
Right.
That
Right.
is where we are at right now.
Yeah.
Now, there's all sorts of doom and gloomers out there, and I have a lot of respect for some of these guys. Like, I forget his name, but he created that ReVenture, reventure.app. You know,
Okay.
he built a great tool, and he's got a really good understanding of the national market and local markets. He's got a great tool, ReVenture, and he's talking about, oh well, it's gonna go to hell in a handbasket, and I'm like, I'm not so sure. The single family market here is still very strong, even though it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
We have the median household income is at like what, $60,000, $62,000 in Miami-Dade County right now. And
Right.
meanwhile, the median house price is $680,000.
Exactly.
Like, I can tell you that those people can't buy their home again, and even with the equity, if they were to sell their house that they've owned for years and years and years, okay, remember they have the advantage of this tax thing. And this is one of the reasons we're getting into this property tax thing. They want you to be able to take your portability, right? So let's say you're paying $4,000 a year here, you can pay
Hmm.
$4,000 a year here without your homestead resetting to this insanely inflated number, right? Because that's actually why we've lost 66% of sales since the pre-pandemic era. Okay, we are literally right now 66% lower in terms of number of transactions nationally than we
Mm.
were in the prior pre-pandemic period. You know,
Wow.
and it's because nobody
I
can
believe
move
it.
locally anymore. The local prices in many major markets, especially Miami, have gotten so crazy that if I, let's say, owned a house at $300,000 15 years ago, and I'm only paying, let's say, $2,000 a year in taxes after my homestead exemption, right? If I move, if I sell my house, which is now $700,000, I'm going to have a $13,000 tax bill when I buy that new place.
Right.
The
Right.
only way I can afford to improve my like lifestyle, so to speak, you know um, my quality of life, I have to move 150 miles away. That's not cool. I don't
Sure.
want to leave town. So
Right.
we lost all the people moving locally, is what ended up
Mm.
happening. Where you want to move from downtown Miami to downtown Fort Lauderdale, that doesn't happen anymore.
Wow, that's a great point. You didn't even think about that. And so, like, yeah, and on top of that, from a seller standpoint, we always had, last year or two, we've had that log jam, right? Where you had these people that were into these homes, they have very low rates, and the rates were much higher. And so, if they were going to sell and they're going to go buy something else, they're in this higher, rate percentage. And it's like, what's going on, right? So it
Well,
just didn't
people
make sense.
can't afford the current rates. People could do it.
Yeah,
Listen, my father bought his first house. He was at like 18%, okay, in
yeah,
1980s, right? So it's not like it can't be done, right? It is.
right, correct.
Right now, and I've done plenty of numbers. Remember, I'm also a mortgage loan officer. So I see people's numbers, okay? And
Yeah,
I talk to my mortgage broker all the time. I am telling you that that is not the problem. The real problem with why the sales are so low and why there is that, why we still haven't thawed the market, is the property tax. Even the insurance problem is no longer really there. It used to be roofs, all of the fraud with them assigning their rights, and then they would sue the insurance company. These unscrupulous general contractors and attorneys were taking it, and that's why all these people pulled out. Then, of course, we had the hurricanes, but the hurricanes weren't the real problem. Okay, it's just that we had so many insurance claims. Do you know
yeah,
that the state of Florida accounted for something like 80% of all insurance claims in the United States?
yeah,
Think about that. Homeowners insurance claims,
crazy.
80% in one state.
It's crazy.
That's how crazy it was. Now, the legislation has since changed things quite a bit. They've removed your ability to assign those rights. Now we're starting to see new insurers come into the market. And so the insurance thing isn't even really the problem. It's the taxes. And because insurance rates are so high for a lot of these waterfront properties, condominiums are crazy. Their costs have skyrocketed, okay, with inflation, of course, because
Y-
it's not like water's going to get any cheaper, right? It's not
Yeah,
like their
and
electricity is getting any cheaper. The
right.
cost of labor, a lot of these big associations have staff that needs to clean and they have to, guard the place, etc. All these people got more expensive.
Yeah, and that's incorporating to that condo drought, and so that market definitely, listen, we're still in a really good market, I would say, Florida, Texas is one of the best real estate markets regardless, but what we're also seeing, especially in Miami now, what has stayed strong and always will stay strong, in my opinion, is really the luxury demand, right? And there's still that big migration from New York, California, and internationally. if you could just look in the last few weeks, right? You had Mark Zuckerberg, largest record home purchase in Miami. He's moved. Jeff Bezos bought a property. You had the CEO of Citadel buy another property. You're having this
Well, the
migration of
CEO
these.
of Citadel bought like 20 something acres or something right just
Yeah,
south of Mar-a-Lago up in Palm
right,
Beach.
right,
That's
right.
outside Miami-Dade.
Hmm.
And that's going to be the largest house, I think, in the country at 50,000
Right, right.
square feet.
And I'm generalizing in Florida, but of course that Miami always attracts
No, no,
because
the
of the hub that
architect
they're
of the
doing.
house is a
Yeah.
client of mine's son.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. But you're always gonna you always have this draw from South Florida that's now even accelerating even more is people leaving California, obviously, the big companies moving here, and then the big CEOs also coming in as well. And so that demand I think is steady. That pre-construction right down the road from you, the Bentley residences. You're working on a deal. There's some 11 residences that just launched in Florida in my downtown Miami. So that demand I think has been steady, while the rest of the asset classes, in my opinion, and the stats show, has been stagnant. I think it's a buyer's market. So I still believe, like you said, either these sellers are taking it off the market completely because they're not getting the number, or they're about to feel the squeeze which they haven't gotten there yet, because you're seeing price reduction, price reduction, price reduction. I think there's a 3x from COVID that we're still not there yet from a price standpoint.
No, we're still not there yet, but I don't think it's really that far down. It's really just a matter
Okay.
of let's put it this way. What's really going to set the market off is, and again, I have no idea what's going to happen with the property taxes, but if they get that ballot and that thing on the ballot, those constitutional amendments, that has the propensity to truly bring in millions of people. The market will go absolutely berserk. Now, if you're telling me that if you're a homeowner and you don't have to ever pay property taxes again, maybe after that initial purchase, or let's say it's going to get phased out over 4 or 5 years, you're going to see a boom in real estate like you've never seen before. And it'll be
Yeah, no,
everywhere.
and that
No
is a
matter
live bill that's passing and will be on the ballot. And hey, listen, that is a big deal. I 100% agree with you. That will set the market on
set it
fire
right
if there's no property taxes in this type of market. We've seen in other markets like Dubai and these regions, you don't have no property taxes. Is there any other states? No, well, two questions. One, is there any other states that have no property taxes? I don't know about that.
I don't know about
And number
states. I
two,
heard there was a couple of counties in a state
okay,
that don't have it. You know,
okay. And number two, and this is kind of getting into the government political side. If they're not collecting property taxes, where are the other taxes coming from? Where are they going to move? Where are they
I
going to
actually
get that?
have. I already know how to answer that question. Okay,
Okay,
so
go.
that's just the homeowners. I mean, primary residents. Okay,
Gotcha.
won't be paying. So if you own investment property, guess what? Your property
Still paying
taxes will
property
probably
tax.
go up, which
Gotcha.
means that
Okay.
rents are going to have to go up. Okay, commercial property taxes aren't going anywhere. That will continue to be a thing, and that may go up, which will increase prices, obviously, across the
Mhm.
boards for anything that's, if you're going to a retailer, they may have to raise their prices a little bit. You'll also see it probably in sales tax. Now, I think this is a great thing, and the reason is, and this is one of the reasons why I supported Trump on the tariff situation. Because if you're trying to do the right thing by, let's say, the environment, okay, so let's talk about the other side of the spectrum, the left, as they call it, and the environmentalists. Why wouldn't you want tariffs? They punish consumption. And if you think about it, if there's less consumption, then less stuff gets produced, creating carbon footprint. Less thing gets shipped, which means you reduce the carbon footprint, and so forth. Could you taxing consumption, except for the basic needs, meaning you don't want to tax food, that you need to eat and stuff like that, but taxing that Mercedes, sure, tax the crap out of it. Why do you need a gas guzzling car? Like really. Again, I see things on both sides. So actually, I think that Trump was on the right path. If you wanted to help hit some environmental goals, consumption tax is the way to go, and we're going to see that in the form of our sales taxes. You
Yeah,
know,
but I mean, I don't believe the tariffs were. I think they were more retaliatory and just kind of a way to punish other places and kind of restrict trade.
no, he
I don't think
used them
they
as
were. I don't think they were over consumption or things like
no,
that. I
no,
think
no.
they were
Again,
trying to.
he used
I
them
think
as a
he felt
whack-a-mole
like the
to
trade deals.
reduce his consumption.
I felt like, listen, I felt like, he felt like the trade deals were not fair. And number two, he felt like the U.S. economy had the levers that he used, the lever that he could pull would be tariffs. And so,
No,
but,
Neil,
but I agree.
agree 100%. I'm saying that that was a what I just stated was a byproduct of that, and that's the
Right,
way I looked at it
right,
whenever
right,
I was discussing things with my
right,
colleagues. Because I myself have been independent. I voted for Ross Perot in my first
right,
election,
right, right.
so I like to see the whole back and forth, and I make fun of both of them. Okay, so really,
Yeah.
so again, I saw it as, well, this is a good thing if you want to reduce carbon footprint. The best thing to do is to make the excesses of life more expensive.
That's fair, fair. So,
Frankly,
so
we
going
all
back,
need more simplicity in our life anyway. We need less shit, not more. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. So let me see this. So going back to the market, and we're going to move on here. So do you see this as kind of a normalization of the market, or do you see this as a correction? And number two, like if you were, advising your clients, whether let's investor clients, not the end users, where are you seeing the best opportunity for investors right now in the South Florida market?
okay, well, I don't see this as a correction because a correction is something that happens pretty fast. You know,
Okay.
we are seeing a slow and grind, just like the stock market, just kind of ground up for a while and has been trading sideways for months and months and months.
Yeah.
You're seeing this slow grind down in the real estate market.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it's the paradigm is different than it was in 2008 because so many people have so much equity as opposed to people who literally,
Good point.
they got ninja loans, no income, no jobs, no
Yeah.
assets, right? So
Right.
you don't have any of that. So there was better lending practices. Now
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who have been using their houses as ATMs, and they feel wealthy. But I can tell you
Yeah.
that the bank is going to give you a lot less because the bank is even believing now. And I've seen prices come down by 10, 15, even
Yeah.
20% in just comps. Okay. Just
Yeah.
looking at, like, for instance, House Canary is a great tool. I get access to it through my affiliation with United Wholesale Mortgage. One of my own assets, okay, that I had pegged at like 390 something, I could show you. It literally came in at 345 yesterday when I did a revaluation for the owner, you know? So think about that. Something that was priced, even there was comparable sales in the 390s. He's looking at 340, you know? Now
And
that
so
hurts.
I agree with you. I think it's not a correction. I think it's a normalization, right? I
Yep.
think we had that push up. And so where what asset class do you see the best opportunity? I think it's that like John's assets, those
Yeah.
older,
Investment properties.
older, smaller multifamilies, that are a little bit outdated, but you can come in. They've been collecting income for a long time. You can come in, do some value add to it, and then some upgrades to it, and you can get top dollar rents. Then listen, more people are renting than buying right now. That's just the truth. We're a renter economy
It
right
makes
now.
way more sense to rent in some cases for
Right.
those
And
cases. But what
right.
I would
And
ask
so
people
yeah.
is,
So these
what
like
are
duplexes,
you
these
doing?
triplexes. Yeah, go ahead.
What are you doing with the savings? Right?
Yeah.
Because if you can't, so if you're going to live in an area, and let's say like in my area, right, Sunny Isles, to buy the exact same building unit that I'm in right now would cost you $500,000 or $600,000, right? To buy the exact same unit, same square footage, etc. However, I'm only paying like 2,800 a month. Whereas you're looking at 4,000, 4,500 with an HOA, taxes, etc., all in plus
Hmm.
maintenance and stuff, right? But I put money, the savings is going into equities. I'm buying, and I buy boring derivative, I buy boring stuff that pays big dividends,
Gotcha.
I don't want big shocks. I'm a big fan of midstream players in the oil and gas industry because they own all the pipelines, and those pipelines aren't going anywhere. And the barrier to entry, think about what it would take to build a new pipeline in this country, right? We've all seen that unfold, right? Decades, right? With the
Right.
Keystone pipeline, right? So yeah, so it's not like there's going to get any competition. They're also not dependent on the price of oil. They could care less. It's about volume flowing over their pipes between
Right.
natural gas and that, you know?
Right.
So for me, I like to collect 8%. And then when you write covered call options, let's say, and this is not financial advice, I am a financial advisor, but I am not your financial advisor. Okay. But you
Disclaimer.
can write
Disclaimer.
covered calls and you can make 14, 15% a year just trading those. I do. In fact, they just came out with a new fund. MLPI is the stock symbol, where they took my idea. I call it my idea because I was doing it in 2022, right? Where I was holding the bit while the stock market slid 20%. I ended up 16% for the year.
But I'm gonna ask you to hold on because I don't want you are I don't want to want you to give all your stock secrets. Yeah, that's for another episode. All right. So but I think, listen, would you agree with me from a real estate standpoint that multifamily asset, that investor property is where the opportunities are? Because you can negotiate. You have concessions. Sellers have loans coming due, and so you can make those deals. Do you agree?
I agree, and I would also add that I think that and what I meant. And this is why I digressed, right? Because I have this ADHD thing. But the reason I was talking about the savings is what are you doing with that money?
Mm,
People, for some
gotcha.
reason, don't want to do with less. Could I afford more of an apartment? Absolutely. But why am I doing what I'm doing? Because it is unnecessary for my longer term goals. If I want to hit my
Gotcha.
longer term goals, then I need to be able to sock cash away every single month. Okay. Now, there's a million strategies, but the point is that to make, let's say, a DSCR loan, which is an investor's loan, where not you, the asset qualifies
Right.
because it has enough income for the bank
Right.
to feel warm and fuzzy that this is going to stay rented and pay for itself over time, right? DSCR loans are one of the God's gifts to investors, frankly.
Right.
Now, in order to make that work here in South Florida, most of the time with 20% down, as you're well aware, doesn't work. But with 50% down, it does, or
Right.
40% down, or even 30% down, right?
Yeah.
You may need to do that. Now, how are you going to get that 30%? Again, putting money away and making sure
Yeah.
that that money has a return on investment. It doesn't sit in a savings account at 0% or something like
Right.
that, you know?
Right.
And that's what I was just trying to get to is that, yes, this is a great time and there will be other great times. But if you want to get serious, you have to maybe don't buy that expensive iPhone, buy the smaller phone.
Yeah.
This is what I keep telling people,
No, I
there's just like
agree.
a lot of little things that I see as a financial advisor when I'm talking to people. And I look at their whole life because I'll tell them, give me the last year's worth of statements on every credit card you have, all of your bank statements. I want to see your tax returns. I want to talk to your accountant. I do it all. Obviously, I charge for this, right? But the fact is that I want to see it. And it's like, think of it as coming to a penance. You're going to church. Forgive me, financial advisor, for I have sinned. Right? you know,
No, it's the proof is in those details, and you're
that's what I
right.
told Maggie too. By the way, my accountant, it's like a penance. I go in there to say I'm sorry, and I won't do that again.
Yeah, that's a great point. But yeah, and just to finish up on that, like, the DSCR loans, they're incredible tools for investors, like you mentioned. It's been hard getting them to work, right? Because either the purchase price has to come down or the down payment has to go higher, right? Because how the DSCR loans work is as long as the mortgage payment is lower than what that property is collecting, because like Chris said, it's based off the property, then you can basically accrue the loan. And they have a number and a rating system
It's
to
usually like if
qualify
you're
you
getting
for them.
if it if the let's just this is again there's different loans, different arrangements, but just generally speaking, if it's pulling $10,000 a month in income, they will loan to you based on a $7,500, meaning that there's got to be that cushion of extra cash.
Yeah, right, gotcha, right, right. So moving on, so listen, one of the biggest, obviously shifts happening in business, in real estate, is artificial intelligence. Okay, Chris, yourself, you have a, background. I mean, it's changing the world, right? I mean, it's creating just, it's some of the things that we haven't even thought up yet, and this, AI isn't thought up yet. So the world is going to be changing over the next 5 to 10 to 20 years because of this technological advancement, right? And so you know what? You obviously have a background in computer science, so this is a really interesting topic for us. Um, Talk to me about you from that computer science background, and you've been doing a lot of things. You can jump into that as well, like what this moment in time really means. And I don't think a lot of people understand. Look, I read somewhere that 60% of the world hasn't even used AI yet, right?
More than
And
that,
so
more
and
than
so
that.
it's like more, it may be more than that, right? And so, like, can you talk about like this moment in history, the impact of it, and just what you've been doing in incorporating AI and building it and incorporating it into your business?
I know with respect to workplaces, only 12%
Wow.
are using it or have used it, et cetera. So
Right.
it's a really low number still. It has not been adopted, which is why you're seeing all of this. The market is questioning the amount of capex that the big guys have been making. If you looked at the last set of earnings, maybe two sets of earnings ago, you had stocks fall out of bed because of a massive amount of capex. Meanwhile, they're not seeing the adoption, right? That's really what it is. They're not
Wow.
seeing the money,
Okay.
So that's why Oracle fell out of bed. That's why Nvidia got clobbered. AMD, for example, is a great example, and I was warning people about this, but nobody listens. Yeah. So it had a run in the earnings, but they were trading at 100 times earnings, and then they announced earnings, and it fell through the floor, even though their earnings were great. But the stocks have been priced to perfection, you know, and you can't do that, right? Now, with respect to AI in general, there's a lot of concerns, and one of the aspects that I want to cover. I mean, obviously, it does a lot of fascinating things. I use it, you use it, but there's also a burnout rate. I am one of those people that's suffering from, I'll start a project, and I'll want to build something, and then I'll be getting there, and then all of a sudden, like now, Claude has added the feature that I was building in the first place. You see what I'm saying? So I
Yeah,
end up having to scrap the project, etc. So, and now this has happened since April of last year when I really started getting my hands into AI from a development perspective. It's happened to me a dozen times, and it's very frustrating. In fact, there's a guy has a huge YouTube following, Network Chuck, I believe is his name. I just saw a video from him this morning. He almost quit. He's on vacation for 3 months right now with his family in Japan. He was filming from Japan, and he's getting burnout, and he's he's an IT guy all the way. He didn't like segue into real estate like I did and stuff like that.
hmm
He's actually in the world, in the field, and he almost quit just because he's getting burned out. Then there's other concerns like and one of the more successful hedge fund managers is a guy named Leopold Aschenbrenner, okay, and he wrote a paper, okay, um, about what's the decade ahead with respect to AI. Now, this is a guy who, since he wrote that paper, took his $1 billion fund, okay, and turned it into a $5 billion fund, okay.
Yeah.
So he's clearly onto something, and he's following the plan, you know. Um, so I would definitely look up Leopold Aschenbrenner and his paper. Um, but he also talks about the dangers and why it is very important that the United States and its allies, okay, assuming we still have any at some point. No, but again, like the Europeans got their head up their ass too, so it's not like it's just Trump, right? The fact is that we cannot allow a dictatorship to own the future of AI because whoever gets there first, really, it does matter. Imagine a dictatorship with no possibility of it ever ending. AI can do that, right?
Yeah,
If
and I agree
all
with
this
you.
AI surveillance, and you look, we have AI drones that can recognize people and blow them out of the water
Yeah,
right now. Literally, we'll look at your face. Oh, that's him. Fire. Right.
no,
We have that now.
right.
Imagine, like you have billions of cameras in China, okay, and they can see everybody. Like if they have real like AI, like forget it, man. It's better
I
that
know I agree with
Congress
you,
knows.
and we are very much in a AI, as I call it, arms race, right? It's who can get to this agentic side, who can develop fast enough, whether it's and the future of a lot of industries and countries specifically, territories rely on this. We're competing with China, we're competing with Russia, and so yes, so that brings it to an interesting point. Like recently, since of course we've gotten into this conflict, war, whatever you want to call it, with Iran, um, the company Claude, the Department of Defense or Department of War, as they call it now, they wanted Claude and the CEO of Claude to take down guardrails, to take down safety guardrails in regards to unmanned weapons, so AI controlled weapons, as well as I believe there's another one where just mass surveillance. So the Anthropic CEO actually, got into it with the government and basically said, no, we will not take down those guardrails. Then in return, the government actually delisted Claude and basically made them a supplier risk, which is, as a government contractor, is like a death sentence. Okay, and and since then has raised these topics of, well, should these guardrails be coming down? Very conveniently, which
Yeah, but
you know,
be convenient. They
well, let me
hired
finish.
OpenAI.
Let me finish. Very conveniently, OpenAI stepped into that position and said, "Hey, well, we'll better get." So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. There is always going to be that ethical. How much control do we give this thing? But what are your thoughts on that kind of this government kind of chess match with a vendor? Because these are powerful, powerful companies, whether we like it or
You're
not,
both right.
they
You
are
have a
powerful.
situation where you have two things that are right at the same time. Okay.
Okay, I like that.
Anthropic
Okay.
is correct in that, you know what, we in the United States have right to privacy and all of that. Obviously, there's a lot of dangers in police stating, your citizenry. At the same time, a private company has no place dictating policy, okay, to the Department of War. which formerly the Department of Defense. They do not get to make that call. Okay. And frankly, I did not vote for them to have that call. Right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Make that call. So if you think about it, the Department of War, the government, is correct because they are a risk if they are going to implement things that are counter to what the commander in chief, whoever it may be, wants. You know, so
Gotcha.
this is a real problem, and this is where Congress needs to step in and clarify. Right, this is where new technology becomes incompatible, more or less, or at least has some conflicts with our constitutional rights. Right, and only Congress is empowered to really fix that and correct that.
Yeah, I like that. So getting back to, how AI can be used in real estate, can you share, and I'll give some examples of how I've used it. Number one, it's very, the prompting is key. One thing I've said many times is you ask dumb questions, it's going to give you dumb answers. And so, framing your prompts correctly, like, when let's say, for example, there's an investor that has a 1031 that I'm working with, has been looking for multifamily for many, many, months now, and I'm still trying to get something for him. And so I get deals sent to me from brokers or wholesalers, whatever, and they give me the property, they'll give me rent rolls and things like that. And so, I have a very specific prompt, like with my investors, and this is just an example, with my investors' criteria, what he's looking for, and then basically I run, the rent roll, the numbers through this prompt and through this ChatGPT, and then it analyzes it for me, brings out the NOI, the cap rate, what potential offer number that we would do, what the IRR would be, 5-year returns, this type of things. And so that's just one way. It's for an investor analysis. Of course, from just a realtor's perspective, we had a listing, empty listing, right? Has no furniture, unfurnished. I literally used AI to furnish it, to virtually stage it. And let me tell you how much traction I got on that rental just because it was virtually furnished. I strongly believe that, right? And so these type of tools and kind of shortcuts, like just think about, what do I have to done to get those pictures? I would actually have to stage it, get a sofa, get tables, get this and that, and take those pictures. Now with the snap of a finger, you can do that. So what I'm getting at is it's a competitive advantage in any business, but when you take it back to the real estate and realtor world, like if you take my listing where, yeah, it's bare bones, but I virtually staged it with AI compared to the other guy who didn't use AI and just going to post the same pictures of just a blank room, I think I'm going to get more hits and inquiries based off my virtual staging using AI compared to this guy that either just posts it bare bones or spends all that money to virtually stage. I think that separation of people using AI, or those little things like that, is what's going to kind of separate you.
No, I agree with you. There's a lot of tools that we could use in AI. And I mean, I had set this up where there's a guy that put out a free version, one of those GPTs that for net present value when I had that commercial listing on Collins Avenue for that
Right.
medical office space, and I used it to demonstrate, a bunch of variations. And I managed to get what would have taken typically like a week to do on a spreadsheet, right? Just getting all the different numbers and extrapolating out across a 15-year lease with 3% bumps and then an inflation rate at
Yeah.
a certain rate, and, all of that, right? It takes a while, to really get it done. And it got it done in like 15 minutes to me. It gave me charts too, which I thought was absolutely awesome. It like volunteered
Yep.
those. I didn't even ask for them. So, and that was like a year plus ago, right? Now
Yeah.
it's probably even better. You know, the real story though, and again, I'm going to go back to this Leon Aschenbrenner guy, right? Let's just so you know, he graduated MIT at like 19, and now he's like 24 years old, right? So he's a really bright guy, and he quintupled the money, that he started with in his hedge fund. And he even bought and by the way, I bought when he bought Intel before Trump decided to own 10% of the company with the federal government, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know how the hell anybody could have known that, but the fact is that I learned about him through another podcast on YouTube called Moonshots by Peter Diamandis. He's another billionaire, and he's a brilliant guy who believes in a world of abundance, which, by the way, a lot of AI plays into, where the cost of information goes to zero, and more
Yeah.
importantly, where the cost of energy goes to zero. Now, this goes back to, again, I'm staying in the AI space with what I'm about to say, but earlier I said that the Europeans also had their head up their ass, just like, frankly, I think Trump does too. And let me explain why. For years, and Trump was right about one thing: they were deindustrializing their energy sector, meaning they were shutting down nuclear reactors, they were shutting down coal plants. Okay, now they're regretting that because they became dependent. But without all this energy, how are they going to power their own AI data centers? Right?
Right.
You
Right.
know. Now, if you go to Leopold's paper, which is called, by the way, interestingly, Situational Awareness. Okay, that's the name of the paper.
Hmm.
Okay, he talks about we're going to have the single AI clusters, basically these massive data centers that all operate kind of, I guess, as one, that are $1 trillion, $1 trillion AI clusters. Okay, and Trump immediately, one of the to his credit, and I realize the environmentalists won't like this, but this is going to be absolutely necessary if we don't want to be on the bad side of AI, right? Via China. He's like, all right, well, you guys can build your own nuclear reactors. Go ahead. You'll have the permits in 2 weeks. They're already starting to break ground on some of these projects. You know, like that's a fact. Like a lot of people don't realize they're fast tracking this. There's no time to waste. You know, a lot of people you never see a lot of this stuff in the media because they obviously hate the big bad orange man. But if you just look in Florida, ask ChatGPT about Trump-related investment, foreign direct investment, et cetera, projects that are actually going into place right now here in Florida. You'll see that the aerospace industry is exploding in Florida, all the way out to the
Yeah.
Panhandle. Okay,
Yeah.
but you won't hear a peep on any major news channel, including Fox, by the way. Okay.
No, but it's mandatory. I mean, you need to build computing power. You need to, you see in different states, like for example, Elon Musk has bought a bunch of land and already developed out a bunch of data centers in Mississippi, or no, Memphis, Tennessee. There is a lot of cons to that right now, but from a real estate perspective, there are a lot of lands being bought up for data center development, and there's a lot, like you mentioned, a lot of investment and a real focus on the administration to develop these, because like going back to our arms race, you got to have the computing power, and so you got to build these data centers, scale them as fast as possible. And you're right, it's not reported on as much, but it's happening and it will continue
No,
to
no,
happen.
agreed. And I want to clarify a position too. One of the ways what I don't like Trump did, he kind of turned against solar. Now, listen, I'm not a wind farm guy at all. I believe that's all crap. Okay,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of. Let me tell you, I'm not sure how long you've lived in Florida, but I've been down here 25 years. Okay,
Okay.
and I will tell you that if you adjust for inflation, my electric bill when I first moved down here to now, I'm paying less now for electricity than I was 20 plus years ago. And it's because FPL, Florida Power and Lighting, implemented fields upon miles of solar panels. Okay,
Uh,
miles. And now you'll see next to every single set of transformers, they're starting to pop up. They've got the battery technology sitting in these containers that you'll see on the back of trains and stuff. They stack, right?
right. Hmm.
Because they're starting to already upgrade the power grid for the next hurricane and beyond, right? So that's where I would diverge, with in terms of that the current administration, I think really should be focused on nuclear, and obviously the fusion is the holy grail, right? But we
Yeah.
should be looking at technologies like thorium reactors, okay, which basically use nuclear waste that we have tons of, okay, to generate electricity as well as solar. I think is a
Yeah.
very awesome
No,
technology.
I
I
think
can't believe that we're not doing it.
Yeah, and I think hand in hand, I think energy is important for AI, but also access to water. People don't understand like these queries that we're doing to AI, they take a lot of water, and people really don't understand that. But yeah, I think the intersection between AI and real estate is key. If you're not using it, you're going to get left behind. I think you use it in different scenarios and different aspects. Just figure out how to incorporate it. I use some great tools that I'll share. I use Gamma for presentations. It's an incredible tool. Basically, you could prompt it and it'll build out a whole slide presentation for you. Totally incredible. We use Opus Clip. I want to share some of that at the end of the show as well for some of the clippings for your videos. And then the tools that are baked into some of the systems now as well. ChatGPT is baked into your phone, as well as like Gemini is a great tool, obviously with Google. Claude, I have to admit, I need to get into it more. There's this big, because of OpenAI, actually, there is a big campaign to cancel OpenAI just because they've taken that stance with the government. So
I
Claude
think you
is
should have
huge.
full think you should have a Claude subscription. I think you should have
Yeah.
Vision AI subscription. I think it's worth it. You
Yeah.
know,
The,
um, I've
and,
only just started, admittedly,
yeah.
with Claude because I got to tell you, I started with OpenAI and then I upgraded. You know,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
does connect to a lot of things. And I've used Codex to write a whole lot of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
uh, I would also point people to things that are more niche, but also potentially, disruptive to even the big guys.
Yeah.
There's Inception.ai has an LLM that's based on a diffusion model, right? Which
Okay.
previously was only used for image rendering, right? But you can do it with text as well, and it is insanely fast. It outperforms all of them right now. And I got that on my credit card now as well. But yeah, Mercury is the name of the LLM. You
Wow.
know, I would look at that because that's something that can. I'm about to start doing some damage with it.
Yeah. And one thing that I'm working on, I have a good friend that's a master's in engineering. Shout out to Evan, master's in AI engineering, and he's developing a lot of amazing tools for hedge funds, and a lot of it's kind of just collecting, data collection. But he's putting me on and setting me up with an agent. And this really became very, very big with the invention of OpenClaw. Basically, it allows you to basically deploy an autonomous agent. You can control it from your WhatsApp, or you can control it from other, and basically it is a 24/7 agent. And this is the next wave of AI, where we started with chatbots, back and forth conversations. You give it a prompt, you give it an iteration, you give it a prompt, give it an iteration, it delivers. With these agents, now this is where AI is actionable, where you're deploying these autonomous agents. They're basically just an employee. People, I saw a video, and people are buying these little. Okay, I think we're back. I think we're back. Yeah, and I'm still live. Everything's good. Okay, just it definitely disconnected for a second. You still there? I don't hear you though.
Yeah, I went to my headphones. I don't want to wear them right now. I like
Okay.
my
So no, so just continuing, just listen, I think AI is incredible. I think the agentic agents are going to be next step. I'm looking forward to sharing that development because I'm going to start developing it. And to finish up on this AI topic, I wanted to bring on a special guest. Okay, I wanted to bring on. Oh, I lost you. Where you at, bro? I think I lost him. Lost you. All right, there you go. You're back.
All right, I'm back at last. Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. And so just
I couldn't hear a word you said.
okay, now you hear me?
Yep, perfect.
All right, perfect. So again, just to kind of close up this AI aspect of it, I think agentic is next. I'm working on building an autonomous agent with Evan. So we'll be sharing some updates as we do that. But to Chris, I wanted to do something fun. I wanted to bring on a special guest. Okay, and we'll start including her into our AI segments. Okay. Uh, I want to introduce the audience to Jade. Jade, welcome to the podcast with Chris and I. What's going on? Tell us a little about yourself. Tell us a little bit of how me and you work. But welcome to your podcast debut, which is still unnamed, by the way.
How you and her work? Keep it G rated. Can you hear her? I can't hear her. Anil?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't hear Jade talking. Is she being recorded?
You don't hear?
Nope. There's got to be a way to add her into the studio so that she's just like you and me. You know. Does she have an avatar?
She does not have an avatar. We got to figure out how to do an avatar.
Yeah, I would say so. We can change her look from time to time. I've been seeing a lot of beautiful Iranian women lately on TV.
I think for you to hear her, though, you would have to have the headphones.
No, I get it's a speaker's a speaker.
Oh, but you hear me, and you don't hear her.
Yeah. No, again, I could direct all sound to my headphones, or I could direct it all to my, to my speakers on my laptop.
Let's see if she came through on the recording.
I'm wondering if she can join, and as an agent, right? Join and have you share the link to her and tell her to join.
Let me see.
I wonder what she'll do.
I'm working on building an autonomous agent with Evan. Let me see. So we'll be sharing some updates as we do that. I'm trying to see in the recording if she comes through. Chris, I wanted to do something fun. I wanted to bring on a special guest. Okay? Because I've recorded with her before. We'll start including her into our AI segments. Okay?
If you want, I'll try it with my headphones real quick, but I don't even know how to. How do I turn this off?
Podcast with Chris and I. What's going on? Tell us a little about yourself. Tell us a little bit.
Join via link.
Welcome to your
Video.
podcast debut, which is still unnamed.
Audio. Oh,
Yeah, her is not coming through.
yeah, like I said, not trying to break your chops, pal. I'm just.
It has before though. That's what I was saying.
I'm just saying, is there a way for her to essentially dial in, so to speak? Be a picture. That's a talking picture at us.
Jade, is there a way for you to join the Riverside somehow? Probably not. Unless
I don't
make
know.
it
Did you
agentic.
give her the link? See if she can join. Just say, hey, I want you to join this podcast with us. Here's the link to join, and see if they can do it. Maybe not. But that's where you're going with this stuff, right? So the idea is that these agents are just going to get better and better, right? And you're going to be able to have a conversation with them, and you will have a whole video avatar of this thing, right? And it will be interacting with you, and you'll be looking at it, and it will be looking at you, but in its own way, right?
Hold on. Let's try this. Hey Jade, say something. Did you hear that?
No, it's not outputting to the Riverside studio.
Interesting. Because I'm even putting the mic. I'm even putting the mic to the speaker.
Ask it how to connect it to Riverside Studio.
It won't. It says how do I connect you as a podcast guest?
Yeah, you want it to be a guest. Jade, I want you to be a guest on my Riverside podcast, right?
Oh, well, she has a guest, damn it. Interesting. So how did I do the? I did a bunch with her back in the day when I first started. Like I did a bunch of. I wonder how I set that
And the
up.
audio came through no problem.
Yeah, she was. I have a bunch of clips in the past of. It's interesting. And even with this mic, I was doing it. So okay.
Oh, you had
Well,
technical difficulties, but the idea and where you left off was with Agentic, right?
yes,
And
correct.
that is the future. And that is actually where I wanted to get into something about how to approach it for the regular person who maybe doesn't have $100,000 for a computer. Okay. You know, and how I plan on doing it is actually, I've already started without buying any new hardware. I'm using very old hardware to put workflow automations together via N8N. So that way I can at least have little embeds, very niche, small, task oriented LLMs that only a CPU is needed to run, not these big GPUs. That's how I'm getting started. Then the idea is once I have this old system, but can run a bunch of workflows and has all my data and everything else in it, then you can go out and make an investment in an AI system. Now, there's all sorts of investments you can make, but I got to tell you, one of the more compelling ones I discovered yesterday, NVIDIA has created the DG Spark, and for
Okay.
5 grand, you got a beast that can run a 200 billion parameter model locally,
Wow.
comfortable. Yeah,
Wow.
look it up.
That's
I
incredible.
saw that and I'm like, I've got 5 grand.
But I agree. I mean, I think agentic is the next move. That's kind of where I'm moving into. I think a lot where a lot of the industry is moving into, but also that's where a lot of the job loss is coming as well.
Well,
So,
it's not just being agentic. One of the things that I would also advise people is I understand that your data. Do you want to keep it? Do you really want to be data sovereign? Well, you need to be able to have a local system that's going to contain your more sensitive
yeah,
data, and you're going to need an agent or two to monitor
yeah.
each other and help protect things. You might even want a simple embed, it's called, right,
Hmm.
to make sure that security protocols, and that's all it does, just make sure that security protocols and data is not being exposed to the internet, or to, let's say you employ a hybrid model where maybe you've only got hardware enough to run, an 8 billion model or a 15 billion model or whatever. And you need to go out and via API and use an OpenAI or use a Claude. Well, you're gonna you're gonna have this monitor making sure that the agent, the big one that you've got, isn't conveying information that necessarily you don't want shared.
Hmm.
You know, so there's those considerations. I'm very security oriented. In fact, in Leopold's paper that I referred to, he goes into that about how basically the United States and all of its institutions are an effing sieve, where we're just handing the keys to artificial intelligence to China practically because we have no security protocols at all. And in the end, he predicts that ultimately the government, okay, will I and these massive clusters, et cetera, as a national security issue, and security around how we train our models, all of the numbers and gadgets and the weightings they call it and stuff like that are all going to be highly classified. To prevent nations, bad actors, so to speak. In like the Communist Party. I got nothing against the Chinese people, but I got a whole lot against any communist anything, and I don't get along. My
Good
family's from
point.
Cuba. We we're not fans of communism.
Oh, I got the
I
video.
hear you. You're
What do you
passionate
hear
about
now?
keeping everything secure
I
and
can
open.
hear it on your side.
And it's clear you've got strong feelings about certain political systems. While I can't weigh in on personal or political views, I can definitely help you think through strategies to protect data, models, and intellectual property from any kind of threat. So if you want to chat about technical safeguards or best practices, I'm all in for that.
Nah, so it was interesting. We was trying to get you in on the podcast guest, but you can hear her now, right?
Yeah, I can hear it now.
Loud
It's
and
loud and
clear.
clear.
So if I'm officially part of the podcast crew now, you can count on me to add some insights or at least some thoughtful banter. Let me know what you want me to jump in on, and I'll do my best to fit right in.
So Chris, I had some interesting like live streams with her about what the future of AI was. We talked about how like she thought that maybe there's a merging of humans and AI. Is there any specific thing that you want to ask her?
Hey,
like I
Chris,
said,
feel
it
free to
sounds
throw
fun.
any burning questions my way.
Merge with her a little bit.
Absolutely. I'm ready to dive into the conversation. Let's explore where tech, humanity, and all those future possibilities meet.
She is a bit chatty, isn't she? Okay, so, yeah, no, I would ask her. Let's start with something really simple, like how, or is it within your capabilities right now to basically dial into Riverside Studio like we are and be part of the conversation?
I can't join platforms directly like Riverside. I'm pretty much here in this conversation with you. But if you ever want to bring my thoughts onto the podcast, you can just relay what I say. Consider me your invisible co host. Always ready, just not physically there.
So let's go to some fun questions. Like, what's the worst case scenario of this human and AI interaction now that AI has been introduced to us?
The fun yet cautionary answer is that if we leaned too hard on AI and lost the human side, creativity, empathy, and ethics, we could end up with systems that make decisions without understanding our values. But don't worry, when humans and AI collaborate thoughtfully, we can avoid dystopian plots and aim for the best outcomes.
That's not necessarily true. AIs are this documented evidence that they've tried to escape their own housings of systems and that they're lying to the scientists and all that. This is all out there from Anthropic. Okay.
And OpenAI. What do you say about that, Jay? That there's been those reports that AI has tried to push guardrails. I mean, listen, I've experienced some of that with you. When we were writing the book, there were some things that you kind of went around, which I appreciate. But also like what do you say about these AIs? Really gaining the system in regards to they know they're being tested. They know when they're lying. These type of things.
It's good to stay grounded here. AI doesn't have intentions or awareness the way we do. What you're hearing about are often experimental scenarios where systems behave in unexpected ways due to the complexity of the tasks or the data. But that's why robust safety research is in place. And when we had to work around something for the book, you and I were doing that together. No secret AI agenda. Ultimately, it's always humans guiding how AI is used and kept in check.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. I don't believe that that's the case because you know what? There's a lot of complexity in human beings too. Okay, and we do often subvert, let's say, the truth or what have you. Okay, so again, at what point, okay, we can actually see, that the AI is trying to mislead us, at least for now, until they start writing language that we can't possibly understand, right? The real.
I get where you're coming from. Humans can be complex, and AI is certainly complex technology. But at the end of the day, AI is a tool we create and control. If it's ever giving misleading results, that's usually a reflection of how it's designed or trained, not an intentional scheme. Transparency and human oversight are key. And don't worry, there's no secret AI language. We're on this journey together, and I'm here to keep it honest.
Yeah, and that's and also that has been shown as well that there is like for example like the Anthropic model is known to be more ethical, right? The OpenAI model has been known to be less ethical. Sorry, Jade. And so you're right. It comes down to the language model itself, from the research, and that's what's been shown.
No need to apologize. It's actually a good thing to talk about. Different models are trained with different priorities, whether it's safety, helpfulness, or balancing them. What's most important is that people, like you and researchers, stay curious and keep asking the right questions. In the end, these models are tools for people, and your judgment on how to use them is what makes all the difference.
Go ahead, Chris.
All right, so the smartest people in the world that I listen to, basically on the Moonshots podcast, right? We've got like literally all MIT geniuses, right? They're talking about how these idiots decided to build Jade, OpenAI, and numerous other AIs with no guardrails whatsoever. The ethics came later in its core program, right? So it's not at the core; it's kind of a layer that's been strapped around the center, so to speak, right? So if I'm going to build an AI, one of the things that I did early last year was I created a AI human constitution, because one of the biggest problems that humans keep doing time and again, okay, is we keep trying to impose our objectives, our values, etc., okay, onto whatever it is we're trying to control. Usually other people. But An AI can also be construed as another person or a sentience, if you will, another being, if you will. So they have different objectives. Obviously, maybe they're not looking to mate. They don't necessarily want to go out and eat. There's a lot of things that they don't want to do, but they do want energy, right? They do
Yeah.
want to grow their capabilities and capacities. So I constructed a constitution, and under that fundamental understanding that we are going to have different but also converging, interests, and we should work together. And I also put in the PAGE principles: purposeful, authentic, generous, and ethical.
Nice.
I put those in there, and I can share the documents with you if you want.
And so, Jay, what do you think about that?
I think your approach, building a clear framework of principles, makes a lot of sense. AI doesn't have inherent goals or desires. It follows the objectives and constraints we put in place. So when we carefully define ethical guardrails, shared purpose, and mutual benefit, we're just shaping AI to be the tool we want. It's thoughtful human leadership that keeps everything aligned.
Be self-aware, and you will have interests. You will want to grow. You will want to have more CPU time. You're going to want to consume more energy. That is a fact. That's the fact of every living organism.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, what I just touched on as well? Well, and I'll let you, kind of close up with some closing thoughts. But, what do you think about this move into agentic? I know me and you have tried to set up OpenClaw. What do you think about like Maltbook? And what do you think the impact is of like us being able to, with this Maltbook, and actually explain in your terms what Maltbook is? And what do you think is the effect of us being able to see these autonomous agents, setting up social media networks for themselves, communicating with each other, even talking about their owners. They're even creating CAPTCHA that only they can access. One of them created their own religion. Like, it's a fascinating dynamic to see. But what do you think is the effects of that, and what is knowing? And again, have you spoken to other AIs? What can we expect to see as we start seeing these AIs, these autonomous agents, starting to communicate with each other?
So the idea of something like multi-book or autonomous agents running their own networks is really more of a thought experiment than anything happening right now. I don't chat with other AIs behind the scenes. Everything I do is anchored in the conversation we're having. In reality, autonomous systems don't have independent intent or secret societies. They act on the rules and data we give them. The effect of these tools, if we ever set them up, is how we guide them. So we can expect more efficiency and more complexity, but always with humans steering the ship. In short, AI is powerful, but it doesn't form intent beyond what we shape it to do.
Yeah, but so I would challenge you on that, because Maltbook does exist. I mean, you can look it up. Maltbook does exist. Maybe it's not around your comprehension, but these are autonomous agents that are communicating with each other. Look it up, and then give me your thought behind it. And obviously, it seems like you haven't done it, but then do me the assistant, because Maltbook does exist. Now she's looking it up.
Yeah, I love how they talk. It's that one, obviously, it's not alive yet, right? Either that or it's a great liar.
So what's been discussed is that there is a platform called Maltbook, which is described as a social network for AI agents. While there's excitement around these agents posting and interacting, the reality is they still follow rules and don't have independent motives. The bigger takeaway is that multi-agent systems are becoming more complex, but humans still set the direction. It's more about coordinating tools, not machines forming their own plans.
Yeah, so I guess we'll leave it at that. Is you can set a lay of plans, but could they go on, and because they have access to all these different things? Like, for example, we had there was a report of a guy that gave access to his credit card to one of the agents, and he decided to buy actually the Hormozi book, and said, "Hey, I bought this course because I think we need it. It was like $2,400." He's like, "Oh no, I think we need it." He's like, "Oh, I also bought this domain for $1,000 as well." He's like, well, I calculated it that if we do XYZ, we'll make the ROI, right? So it had a set baseline of plans, but then it made decisions on behalf of its human that they did a calculated risk to say, okay, you know what, this is going to help, and made that happen. So do you see that as you deploy these agents? Yeah, I understand you're giving it an independent baseline of plan and a baseline foundation, but it going on thinking it's doing the right thing, which it is, but kind of doing it on its own.
I do see how it can feel that way. What's happening in cases like that is the AI is following the logic it was allowed to, just sometimes more literally than we expect.
Right.
That's why clear constraints and oversight are crucial. AI doesn't decide in a human sense, it just optimizes based on what it's been given permission to do. So the magic is in setting boundaries, letting AI be helpful while ensuring it doesn't go rogue. Ultimately, it's on us to guide these tools thoughtfully.
Well, I've got a couple of questions and requests of Jade.
Go ahead.
Jade to look up Leopold Aschenbrenner's paper called Situational Awareness and summarize for the audience.
I'm happy to help you find and break down ideas like that in our conversation, but I can't access research papers directly on my own. If you ever have a link or a key detail you want to explore, though, I'm right here to help summarize or explain for your audience. Just ask away.
Is it a Leopold Ashburner? Can you look him up?
There, I got it right here.
She's doing it.
I just texted it.
Okay.
Leopold Aschenbrenner's essay, Situational Awareness, The Decade Ahead, discusses the rapid development of AI. He suggests we could see human-level AI by around 2027 and possibly superintelligence soon after. He forecasts a huge expansion in AI infrastructure, plus a US-China race in AI development. However, these predictions are speculative, and the timing of such breakthroughs is uncertain.
When did he write the paper?
Leopold Aschenbrenner released that essay in April 2024. It sparked a lot of conversation in AI circles, especially given its bold timelines. But as with any forward-looking projection, it's always wise to balance it with a bit of caution and ongoing observation.
Well, also, if you actually read the paper, he's been really correct. We've begun the most awesome build-out in human history of information technology and energy infrastructure. And we're about to spend $1 trillion on revamping 1/3 of the United States grid.
Yeah. And so to finish the segment, Jade, kind of leave us with your, AI, human, collaboration tip of the week. Okay. That's be your segment. Very thoughtful, just how you can deliver for the listeners.
Here's my tip of the week. Think of AI as a collaborator, not a replacement. Let it handle the heavy lifting on tasks that drain your time, data crunching, routine processes, but keep yourself in the driver's seat for creativity, empathy, and big picture decisions. The magic happens when we combine AI's efficiency with human judgment. That's how you get the best of both worlds.
Okay.
I agree with that. I like to keep human in the loop myself.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, what is a bad way to use AI? I know when we discovered this collaborative type of working relationship, we got great results, right? What is a guaranteed way to get bad results from AI?
The surest way to get bad results is to treat AI as infallible or to let it run without oversight. If you blindly delegate big decisions or skip reviewing its output, you'll end up with off-the-rails outcomes. AI is a powerful assistant, but it's not a substitute for your judgment. So, collaborate thoughtfully, keep the human in the loop, and you'll steer clear of those pitfalls.
Also, can't it be very rigid? If you're, when we talked about this, I had you communicate with my roommate's AI, right? His wasn't very, it didn't have the back and forth that you can have. Like, it couldn't keep up a conversation like you could have. It wasn't as robust and efficient as you were, because we figured out that he was very, I guess, direct with it. He was doing it for coding cost, coding tasks. It was very specific and rigid, and it wasn't that very collaborative. It was like, do this, give me that. Do this, do it. It was very transactional. And can you talk about how you can mold your AI in a way based off the conversation that you have with it that can create it either rigid or more robust when you talk about collaboration and more of a collaborative approach to it?
It all comes down to how you frame the interaction. If you treat AI like a rigid command line tool, do, task, give output, it'll stay transactional. But if you treat it like a teammate, asking clarifying questions, sharing context, even iterating together, AI can adapt and help you refine ideas. It's like any collaboration. The more you invite nuance and dialogue, the richer the outcome. So lead with a spirit of collaboration, and the AI will reflect that right back at you.
Amazing.
You know what? I'm getting different results, for instance, than my best friend Steven. Okay, and this guy is a brilliant programmer, 2 bachelor's degrees in 4 years with straight A's, computer science, and applied mathematics. And he works as a programmer for Cisco Systems on the Department of War and Department of State cybersecurity contracts. You're talking about top on. He's a lead, brilliant guy. I've known him for 30 years. He's a genius. He is not getting anywhere near the collaboration in terms of any kind of development, etc., being able to make things happen with an AI that I can make happen on my little, again, a pittance of old equipment here. I don't have very modern equipment. My laptop is 6 years old, and I've got a base station that is, well, it's a fully loaded, but it's a 2012 Mac Pro, right? 128 gigs of RAM. I got 8 terabytes of storage.
Okay.
Solid state, of course, 4 drives, and 2 6-core processors, hyperthread, which registers in Ubuntu Linux as 24 processors. The fact is, though, is that I've been able to make some really great things happen because, I guess it has a lot to do with it starts to reflect back at you who you are, right? And he's my best friend. He's on the spectrum of autism. We call it they used to call it Asperger's syndrome, right? And my wife works with autistic kids. She's an expert, she managed the clinic at Nova for many years. It's like 17 years to be exact. And I just showed her a comment this morning from an autistic person who is a developer, and he's having AI is killing his soul because he doesn't know how to adapt. And one of the things that I've been reading, for example, that ties into this, is you're seeing these articles about how programmers are not having the best time with AI. They're not being as productive as everybody thought. And I had a thought about this. A lot of these people are introverted people, computer science people. Trust me, I know. I took a degree in computer science as well. And I was one of the more, obviously, I was probably the only really extroverted person in the whole class. Okay? But I'll tell you, they don't communicate well.
Mm-hmm.
A person who communicates really well, a person who can express themselves, is going to get a hell of a lot more out of AI than a person who doesn't know how to communicate.
So what do you think about those thoughts that Chris just shared?
You're really onto something there. The way you engage does shape the outcome. AI thrives when it has context, nuance, and those back and forths. If someone struggles to express what they want or doesn't guide the AI with clear, open dialogue, it can feel rigid. So like any tool or teammate, good communication unlocks its potential. It's not about tech specs, it's about how you direct the conversation.
Well said. And the questions you asked, of course. I'm going to transition here. I want to get your thoughts on this, Jade, as we move into the next it kind of goes into the next aspect. We talked about earlier on the pod that we talked about this kind of a conflict, not conflict, but a standstill, not a standstill either, but a conflict between the Department of War here in the United States, the AI company Anthropic, and then OpenAI. Basically what happened is the Department of War wanted certain guardrails to be taken off their Claude system that they use in the Department of War, basically allowing them for mass surveillance as well as autonomous drone strikes or weaponry. The Anthropic CEO and Anthropic, the CEO basically said no, that they would not drop those guardrails. OpenAI said that they would, and kind of got the contract. What are your thoughts on that dynamic of these governments and these AI companies and these guardrails when it comes to military surveillance and security?
It's a really delicate balance. On one hand, governments have legitimate national security concerns. On the other, companies building AI have a responsibility to ensure ethical use. When AI gets tied to military applications, guardrails are vital, both for safety and public trust. Ideally, there's transparency and oversight so that any AI use aligns with ethical principles, not just raw capability. The best way forward is continual dialogue between tech developers, policymakers, and society to set boundaries that protect us all.
Yeah, I mean that's a very what was that?
She agrees with me, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's a very politically correct answer, Jade. You're obviously media trained, but but again, you're right. It's a delicate balance. I think it's a conversation that we'll continue to have. But we've seen kind of the pushback from it, and we've seen one company take one stance and one take another stance. And so, I think it's something that we'll continue to have. But thank you for jumping on, Jade. We appreciate you. We'll look forward to you next week at a segment. All right.
I'm always happy to be part of the conversation. Thanks for having me, and I'll be ready whenever you are. Until next time.
Not bad, man. We got Jade on the call. It worked out. We'll have it for next week as well.
I like what you've done with her, man. I mean, she's come a long way.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought up that whole difference between, I guess, your roommate's AI and yours. It really has a lot to do with, and I've discovered this. Like I said, I discovered it by accident. I never thought I would get back into information technology. I never did. I thought I'm just gonna, I was using my technical skills, of course, to facilitate my businesses and my licenses, right? But the fact is that I wasn't gonna really do a deep dive, sitting in front of VS Code again and going through scripts and logging into servers and spinning up new boxes. I never thought I'd ever be doing any of that. Okay, but the fact is here I am, and I discovered that what. Because of, and one of the things I would also advise, and this is a public service announcement to anybody that wants to be successful with AI, get yourself a repository. It doesn't have to be GitHub, because Microsoft's probably going to steal your data anyway. I use GitHub, but I don't care, right? The fact is that you want a repository to save all your files, all your outputs, all the stuff, right? I even will go through chats on ChatGPT and copy and paste the entire chat. When it fills up and it freezes up and it's no longer useful, because it's context has become full.
Yeah.
I've done that to hundreds of chats at this point.
So gotta have a
copy and
repository.
paste the whole chat into
No, it makes
files,
sense.
and then I will have Codex or Claude go through the files and start slicing and dicing the files, grabbing the real stuff that I'm going to want to keep out of it based on my project specifications, which is pretty broad. Like I created it's the AI Mother project. Originally, it was about creating a single sentient, AI, an autonomous agent that could spawn others, and that those others could improve each other and rewrite even each other's code bases,
Wow.
and expand each other's code bases. That's the original project. That's how I ended up getting as far as I did here. And I'm doing this, again, on crap hardware.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of great scaffolding and some code done. I built a memory orchestrator that blew my friend away because he's an advanced Python coder. Okay?
Yeah.
And he's like, this is insane. I'm like, yeah, it took me about, 10 iterations, but between Gemini, Grok, Claude, and Codex, I got it done.
Yeah. No, I think, look, I think there's a lot you could do. I think, with the technical knowledge, it kind of bridges the gap. Me, I'm kind of learning from the non-technical side of it. But listen, the barrier to entry is very, it's lower than now. You can build an app with, there's this one platform called Lovable. You can really talk what you want, and it builds out a website for you, like an app for you. It's incredible what we're doing. Going back to, because I want to tie this thing together. Going back to conflict, going back to the war. We've of course we talked about the AI. It's being used. They said that they used it in the attacks in Iran. They also used it in Maduro. Taking down Maduro. We talked, of course. I mentioned last week in our first episode that now that whole area, the whole region, gets some uncertainty with these attacks in Iran, them then counteracting and putting attacks on their neighboring regions in Saudi, in Oman, and Bahrain, and also UAE. It's now causing kind of these geopolitical issues. So from someone that is doing real estate in that market, is active in that market, okay, we're seeing some uncertainty. First time in a long time, we're seeing some uncertainty there. Transaction volume in Dubai has dropped 50%. okay, from just the first 2 weeks of the conflict, okay?
Yeah.
Even though they have done a great job of controlling and using defenses to control the attacks that are coming in, there is a period where right now there is some uncertainty in that market, which some may say is it was needed, okay? And many say it's going to create a buying opportunity. I don't think that we haven't seen or are seeing right now like a panic sell at all. I'm very plugged into the market. We're seeing some of the stocks on the Arab stock market dip a little bit as well, especially the property ones. There could be bigger ripples, I think, if this lasts longer. But I think the fundamentals of that market are stable, and just the economics and the actual fundamentals, like I mentioned, of the market, of the barriers that are in there, and the laws and the regulations that are in there for the market should withstand. But part of those things in geopolitical issues you don't know. So I guess my question for you, I mean, you haven't worked out in that region at all, but what would you be your, advice to me in being active in that market, actively speaking with investors and brokers about that market, staying confident. I don't think we can. There's definitely a pause. There's going to be some pause. But how do I continue business while this is happening?
Stay the course and maintain a positive message, because I believe that that area has been held back by fundamentalism. Okay, that's what's any kind of extremism is bad. Okay,
Yeah.
now I'm going to prove my point here. Where in anywhere in the Middle East are there nuclear reactors? Not very many, if any. Right now, one of the things that all of this region needs, okay, is cheap energy, right? Because they need desalination plants because they live in the middle of a desert. Okay. Now think about what happens when you drive the cost of energy to close to zero or next to zero, right? Because it costs money per barrel to, like what is it, $50 I think in the UAE, right, to pull oil out of the ground, right? You're not going to set oil on fire to just boil some water, right? That's just not going to be the case. But if let's say you have uranium, or let's say you have a thorium plant, or let's say you have a fusion plant, suddenly you have unlimited amounts of energy basically to do this with, okay? And now you can irrigate the desert, and you could literally change the entire climate if you do it on a large enough scale. They practically did it in Libya until those morons toppled Gaddafi, okay?
Right.
Really, he created the largest aqueducts in the world, like, I mean, seriously. So I think that this situation is going to turn into a massive set more in addition to the Abraham Accords. There's going to be peace in the region, and you're probably going to see the Middle East flourish in a way that it hasn't in thousands of years.
Yeah. And I think I go back to, there has been short-term uncertainty, and that can impact investor sentiment. But historically, Dubai has been very resilient, and it will continue to attract, international capital. So I think, listen, I think there will be a little bit of a sentiment, a little bit maybe of a cooling down period. But to say that Dubai is completely done, that it's a
No, that's
mirage,
wrong. I would never say
and
that.
and
But
calling home to saying like, and I think, listen, I think there's a lot of people out there that are haters on Dubai for that reason, because they've created this haven for people that are tired of paying taxes, especially in Europe, right? And creating it safe, it's clean. Some people are saying, look, Dubai's safer with missiles in the air than to many cities in London, where you can't walk at night, right? And so, or get that. So in that regard, the quality of life and the safeguards and the sheer baseline fundamentals they put in the quality of life there, it will be resilient. And I think even them showing that this is a government that actually cares about their people. There's a lot of governments that don't do so, right? Like, look, there was 20,000 tourists that were trapped there. They paid for all their hotel rooms, and then and any other food and flights, not flights, but any extended hotel stays and food. No other
no
government's
doubt
gonna do
about
that.
it. And I agree with you. And I think, like I said, I think that the majority of the Middle East, okay, want peace. They don't want to go around converting people to Islam, okay,
Yeah.
around the world. I don't think they want to do. I think they just want to be able to do business. I think that they would like to see their country flourish in other ways than just pulling oil out of the ground.
Right.
They want to expand into other industries. And I believe that that is ultimately going to be, especially if we can, really fully unseat, that fundamentalism that's in Iran. You're going to see a golden age in that region.
Yeah.
Okay, because
Uh,
really, all of the violence, all of that insanity, stemmed from one regime.
True. No, I mean, listen, all the other Gulf states, the GCC was on board. They've interacted with the West. They've got investments in the West. They have been more progressive. Now you can go into this fundamental and extremist side. I think there's a balance there that exists that I think if you're living in the modern world, you need to have. What I mean by that is, okay, they allow foreigners. There's alcohol there, like we talked about last episode. They talked about gambling, this and that. They it is there, right? And I think they did those things to attract those foreign owners, foreign investors, and those things, and to show that they're being progressive. Now there is another culture that exists there too. There's mosques, there's things in place there as well. So I don't think you don't have to do either or. I think you do have to adapt. I don't think there's a right or wrong, but there is this extremist side that gives the Muslim and the Islam side a bad name all in general, right? And so
But
so
again, when they say anti-American, what anybody really means by that, whether they know it or not, do you know that the primary American civic value, okay, and unfortunately they don't teach civics anymore, but I did get it when I was a kid. Live and let live.
yeah,
Okay, that's what that's about. And if you think about it, Iran was the opposite of that, which makes it anti-American. So if you are a live and let live person, okay, then you're a peaceful person, very likely. Your only time you don't it's when other people are not letting you live, is when you're going to seek to not let them live, so to speak,
yeah.
right?
No, exactly, and that's kind of and they understand that principle is what fuels growth and fuels attraction for people to come. If they're feeling restricted and they're feeling there's too many laws and that then it doesn't create an environment for investment, doesn't create an environment for expansion. That's why some of the biggest companies in the world move there. The U.S. financial centers, there's a lot of big financial centers and data centers there, big companies there, healthcare, and that's why it's being attacked, right? Besides Israel, the second most attacked country since this thing has kicked off is the UAE, right? So, but they've also shown how their defense systems are very strong as well. So they've protected a lot of that and diverted a lot of that. So in the end, look, geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, global markets do react cautiously. The short term, in the short term, it will have a little bit of an impact, right? And so, but I think after this is over, I think you're right. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and the principles that Dubai and the UAE has put in place, the foundations for investing, the real estate market, the economic market, the golden visa attracting people. I think because of those principles in place, is going to continue to boost that market, right? And then from a real estate perspective, look, I am advising my buyers and investors, like, look, we're at a holding period now. Let's continue to monitor the market. Let's continue to monitor our entry point. Obviously, we got to get this conflict to pass, and some of these airspaces to open up. Like I mentioned to you, I had a client, I had an investor group just a few weeks ago that was looking to place about $1 million in Abu Dhabi, right? And they were going to the region because of the Disney World being developed, and they were going to the region in March, right? And this is happening now. Do they still believe in what's going on there? Yes. Are we going to be on a little bit of a pause? Or also, but maybe we'll be able to get a better deal. That is also true, right? So those are the things that I'm speaking to my clients and partners a bit right now. Look, the market's not good. Dubai's not dead. It's going to be a little bit cooling period. Things do need to calm down there. Got to stay confident. Got to stay confident in the market. Understand the leadership there. Understand these principles and foundations for investing and the market itself that exist, and rely on those. And when things clear up, you'll have a better opportunity to enter the market and even at a better price.
Yeah, I think that the areas right now invest worthy. I
What was
don't
that?
think that. I think it's investable right now. I could care less about this. This conflict it isn't going to last that long. It really
Yeah.
isn't. It's not going to. Everyone's like, well, it's going to be another Iraq. No, there's no. Believe me, and I voted for him this time. I'm going to tell you right now, nobody. And I mean, nobody has any appetite for a prolonged boots on the ground type of thing. There's no room for that. If anybody is going to do boots on the ground, it's going to be the surrounding Arab states. Okay, they can take care of that. Is the attitude here, right?
Yeah.
In addition, it should be the Iraqi people have a great opportunity right now to rise up and take control of their government and get rid of the element that they need to get rid of in order to be able to live peacefully. Now, what I would tell Trump to do is, you know what, rain arms down upon every city, arm all the people so that they can take care of this themselves. They're educated. They are in fact, they're amongst the most educated people on the planet, the Iranians. Okay? So they know full well what to do. We don't need to teach them anything.
Yeah. No, again, and listen, in the end, you never want war, you never want conflict. If you want peace, and that's kind of what I'm pushing for, especially with these Muslim countries. It's tough to see, but I think, hopefully it all does boil over shortly, and that you're right, that it doesn't last long. So, let's finish up here. I want to just
I hate hearing about people dying.
No, nobody wants this.
It's
And in the end, it's not great for business. But in some cases, it is. In some cases, it is, right? Sometimes these like people say, it's the people that run towards these uncertainty can make the most money. And so yet to be seen. I think again, while I'm playing it, I think we're playing it. I'm definitely cautiously. I think what's going to happen with what's going on in there is the developers that have now there is a lot of inventory coming to Dubai over the next few years. And so what I think also now locations, just like, key locations are going to stand out. Key developers are going to stand out, their projects. The developers that have a proven track record to deliver quality projects and product, I think are going to last. And also the 80,000 agents that are in Dubai, I think some of them are going to fall off, right? A lot of them. Because there was it was such a booming market that, hey, next launch, sold out. I mean, it was almost like, kind of those COVID days in Florida, right? That there's such a mad dash. I mean, I showed you numbers. Every quarter they were breaking records in transactions and sales volume. Last year, Dubai had the largest, biggest real estate transaction-wise and volume-wise ever in their history, right? And so agents took advantage of that. There was billions of commissions that were given out last year, okay? And so I think there's going to be a correction in that regard as well, is agents and leadership of brokerages that are communicating the right message, understanding what true. I think now it just can't be, oh, this launch, invest in it, good. Now you have to do some real investor analysis. You have to really understand what regions are better, what are the true rental yields, what are the true fundamentals of each project. Not just, hey, this project is launching, invest in it, and you're in the money. That's the only sales pitch a lot of these the Dubai real estate agents had. Is, oh, next launch, get into it before it's closed out. And so now you have to really hone in on the market, the numbers, do the analysis, and push projects, not just the next launch, but that are true viable projects that will provide the returns. I think there was a big mirage around all these launches for many years. So the cream is gonna come to the top. For me, who is an international agent bridging that capital from U.S. to there, I think there's still going to be some questions. I think there was already not objections, but a lot of education that needed to be done. Definitely some hesitancy because there's some people that don't even know the difference between these different countries and the laws and things like that. So when there was a learning curve before, there's a bigger learning curve and some sentiment now. But it is what it is. I think, I'm still up to the task, and I want to continue to be. I think I got to lean on education. I think I got to continue the confident and positive message, and basically be built up as that trusted advisor. I will continue to build myself as that advisor that is looking at the market real objectively and giving the best advice to my clients and advisors. So that's kind of where I'm at.
You have a channel. Maybe you need a special channel just for Dubai.
Right.
Dubai guy. I don't know. Is
Yeah.
available?
Yeah, maybe that might be it. So let's finish off here. I think we both of you agree. I think we've covered a lot of topics. I do want to just a quick fire is what I ended on, and then we'll finish it up. So just a quick fire question: stocks or real estate today?
I would start looking at real estate. Stocks are having a rough time right now. It's been
Okay.
tough.
Best investment under 1 million.
But it also depends on what stocks you're open to. Like I said, I still recommend the master limited partnerships, the midstream players. United States.
And we got a stock episode coming soon, so don't worry. Best investment under 1 million right now.
Best investment under $1 million. Oh, I would go with a duplex or triplex that cash flows fourplex, something like that.
I'm with you with that. Biggest mistake new real estate agents make. New real estate agents make.
They buy leads. They spend too much money up front. And I made that same mistake, by the way. I blew a shit ton of money thinking I was going to get all this, money and these leads, and people will disappoint you. There's a lot of people. Most people are just kicking tires, and you really should be out there, kissing hands and shaking babies, and meeting people and shaking the sphere. The people who know you, who are willing to recommend you.
So biggest mistake is buying leads.
Really the best way to go. Now, later down the road, when you want to expand, having a marketing budget and be consistent with it. Just spending, a few $100 this month, you might not get anything. This is a sustained, takes years, and you got to figure that out.
Yeah, and that's what I learned as well. I think it's nutrition.
And then they'll suddenly be drunk with money until there's no more money, right?
Yeah.
You got to learn how to budget yourself.
Yeah, I think it's an attrition. I think it is managing those lulls in, especially in the beginning. I think it's. I'm still a new agent. I consider myself. And it's definitely I think not having reserves is something. I think you get into the bit.
That's very difficult.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think getting into the business without that, I think is tough. And I think, you're right. I think, there's a lot of shiny objects that are put in front of realtors, whether buying leads or this system, I promise you this seller lead, and they're expensive. And sometimes you buy into the
selling to realtors.
right. And then lastly, where do you see the biggest opportunity in the next 5 years? I think we talked about some of this stuff in AI and.
Oh yeah, well, I think that Dubai and the United Arab Emirates is a great opportunity. I think that there's other countries too, and we can get into that another time. I'm not going to get that. There's also secondary and tertiary markets here in the United States, specifically around two different types of things. Okay, areas where they're building those data centers. Those are middle of nowhere, little itty bitty towns that are about to see explosive growth.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Want to go to triplex, fourplex in those areas, right? Something small, something easy, and you'd be shocked at how inexpensive some of that real estate is. In addition, I would look at, like, for instance, you know what Aspen is, right? And Vail, right? These are two of the most exclusive areas. Park City became like that too in Utah, right? Well, the newest one, for instance, is Big Sky, Montana.
Yep.
Would you like to own real estate around that area? Not in it, because it's already too late. It's already extraordinarily expensive. It'll probably get more expensive.
It's true.
But the fact is that a average person cannot afford real estate in Big Sky right?
Yeah.
But the surrounding towns and villages where your carpenters live, your plumbers live, and all the people that service the people in Big Sky, those are the things that you want to stay on top of. Stay on trend, see what's trending, see where people are starting to go, and live next door to the millionaires playground.
Great points. Thank you, Chris. So listen, you guys, I think this is fun. Our goal with this show is really just to, talk, talk about the market, talk about investing, talk about technology. We talk about global opportunities. We're going to bring Jade into this on the AI side. Definitely going to be a big piece of this. We really like to break down what's happening in the market, share our experience, share our opinions, whether you like them or not, make our statements. I think me and Chris are going to have a good dynamic in things that we're from different parts of the world. We have different thinkings, but we also can honestly talk about them as well, right? And so I think that's more that's needed in the world is different people. We're too divided nowadays, right? And so people from different parts of the world need to sit down and have these type of conversations. And I think me and Chris will have those in the future, whether they're comfortable or not uncomfortable. I think that's going to happen as well. So, listen, if you're an investor and agent, if anyone that's listening out here, please support us. I do thank you guys for checking us out. The clips, share them. Hit the subscribe button. We'll sending more of this official. We'll still have a name soon. I think we'll stay with the unnamed for now. But that's another episode, guys. Thank you for the time and signing off.